Hello and welcome to another Facebook Live. This evening, I'm just going to be talking to you about anxiety and stress, because anxiety and stress are very, very much related, and how that affects us in every area of our life, not just our relationships, but work, family, personal time, uh, everything that you can imagine. If we're suffering from stress and anxiety in our minds go everywhere with us. So it has an effect on everything we do, really. So when you look at what stress and anxiety is, there's a load of stuff out there on the internet of different opinions, medical opinions, non-professional opinions. And it's very, very difficult to kind of encapsulate what it is. I'm sticking to a framework because it's very broad and it's very wide. So I want to keep this really simple. I don't want to confuse you with stuff. I just want to make this relatable and hopefully put it away and across that you can understand how it is for you and how it affects you, regardless of what everything else is written on the internet, so that you've got an understanding of what it's about, how it affects you, and how it makes you feel. And towards the end of the video, we'll talk about some of the things that are necessary to be able to keep stress and anxiety under control and to move away from it and to create a better environment and life for yourself. So when we think about anxiety itself, people say I'm very anxious. It's often triggered by the state of stress, and this brings feelings of apprehension and fear. Fear is the key terminology when we think of anxiety. You can feel really uneasy when you're anxious because you're worried. Anxiety is worrying about what lies ahead, not necessarily what so much is in the past. Anxiety is predicting what may happen in the future that isn't going to be good for you, which causes these feelings of anxiousness. And very often when people suffer from anxiety, they don't really know where those feelings come from. They just feel anxious and can't pinpoint particularly where those feelings of anxiety come from. Now, anxiety is associated with very much with your feelings and emotions, and the root is can be quite deep or historical and tied up in your cognitive process, in your conscious and unconscious. Where stress is a bodily response. Stress is something that our body does in response to fear. So we respond in a stressful way to given situations which necessarily we don't understand, and our body is fine-tuned to react to fear very, very quickly, because that's what we've done for millions of years to stay safe and to survive. And those mechanisms in the brain are still the same mechanisms that fire now to keep us safe and to help us avoid danger. So when we think about anxiety, it's about thinking about fighting, flighting, or fighting, fleeing, or freezing. And anxiety causes our brain to think in a certain way in the future of what we're going to do about a situation, whether we're going to fight it, whether we're going to run away, or we're just going to freeze. And this causes us pain, and it prevents us from moving on because we get stuck in anxiety, and it kind of makes our world very, very narrow and very small. It really clouds up the mind. It creates a confusion. It creates a lack of focus. It's difficult to see goals and ways ahead. And often people that come to therapy who've suffered stress and anxiety, that's what they say. They say they can't really feel a way forward. They can't see a way forward. And it's like the brain is frozen and it's stuck. And they don't seem to be able to move away from that because of the narrowing of the focus of the brain and that cloudiness that it creates. So when we think about anxiety, we need to think about stress. So what is stress and why do we get it? Okay, so where stress has come from historically, should we say, is let's think about our ancestors, where we go back in time, a million years, whatever it is, where we used to live in caves. Our cavemen ancestors would live in communities. And the stresses that they would have might be the stress of being eaten by another animal, perhaps the stress of attack by, other tribes, and the stress of being discommunicated from a community. If you were thrown out of a community where you needed to be connected to survive, you were going to die. So these things were very important. So the brain's evolved in a way that helps us to feel fear really, really quickly, because it's that fear that keeps us safe. And when we get into a situation of fear, so let's say our cavemen buddies go out hunting, a group of them from the tribe. They will go out and let's imagine one of them hears a rustle of some leaves or some branches breaking, and he will go into stress mode. That stress mode prepares him for whatever that is. It could be a saber-toothed tiger. So he will go into stress mode, and his buddies will sense that stress and feed off that stress, and they will go into stress mode as well, because they all realize there's a dangerous situation that they have to prepare their body for, to fight or flight from that situation. Otherwise, they're going to die. So it's quite an important thing that the body is prepared to its max, absolutely maximum, because the consequence could be literally the end of your life. So when we go into fight or flight mode, the body has a surge of cortisol that's temporarily increases our energy, and it triggers the release of glucose. So we get a sugar rush into our body to give us extra energy, and it puts the body into a high sense of alert, and it's a sense of paranoia. The heart rate will go, your breathing will go short and fast, your blood pressure will increase, and your body focuses all its energy on preparing to fight or to run. So your blood will be diverted to your outer limbs, your arms and your legs, to give you the maximum speed that you may need. Your muscles will tense and your pupils will dilate for your sight, and your hearing and your other senses become broader. But interestingly, the systems that you don't need at that time, like your digestion, you don't need to worry about what you're going to eat if you're going to fight something that's going to kill you. You don't have to grow, so your growth system shuts off. Your immune system closes down because you don't need to fight off diseases while you're fighting for your life. The reproduction system closes down, the libido shuts down, because you don't need any energy into those systems. You need all your energy to be able to fight what's in front of you, to be able to survive. And also, the brain has trouble focusing on small tasks, because the focus is on the bigger picture. Where is the danger? Where's it coming from? Is there any other dangers? So there's a broader focus rather than on specific detail. Specific detail becomes less important. And that's what we've evolved to do over millions of years, is to prepare ourselves with stress and anxiety physiologically, to prepare to fight for it. And those systems that our cavemen had are very much the same systems today. We've still got all of those systems that work exactly the same and create the same effects on the body. But now a caveman would have a fight or flight situation, but then he would go back to the community or the cave. He'd spend time resting, sleeping and chilling out. And necessarily there was zero stress in that kind of environment, although there would have been some anxiety about having to know that he's got to go out and hunt again. So that was then. Now what now we live in a much safer culture, a much safer society now. We don't have saber-toothed tigers wandering around the streets. We have health and safety, which is absolutely crackers, and we have lots of stuff that is designed to keep us safe. And we are in a world where safety is paramount for all of us. So we don't have necessarily the same dangers as what our caveman ancestors had. But of course we do have dangers. We have threats and we have dangers, and we have to prepare ourselves for them. So whereas a caveman would have a period of stress and then go back and have time out and then go hunting again and perhaps have another period of stress, we don't have those saber-toothed tigers today. But what are our saber-toothed tigers today that cause us stress? Okay, so let's think about this. A lot of people have got jobs that they don't like to go to that's extremely stressful. We bring up children in a very stressful environment. We have financial difficulties that's very stressful. We have relationships that we're struggling with and they're often very, very difficult. We have worries of security, being isolated. We have emails that ping in with bad news. We have 24/7 mobile phones that constantly feed us negative information. So every time that we get an event that is stressful, our bodies will go into fight or flight to some sort of level. And when you think about all of the things that are causing us to be stressed in this age now, we are constantly in a state or some form of stress because we get very, very little relief from that stress and that anxiety. So we've constantly got a drip, drip, drip of cortisol and adrenaline into our system where our body never gets a break from it. It should have a break. It should have periods of rest where we get to a place of homeostasis where we relax and heal. But because of the society that we live in now, we have a constant flow of things that come at us that cause us to feel stressed, which causes us to feel anxious about the future. And we're not getting away from that. We're not getting away from those stresses enough to heal our bodies and to recover. So we go from episodic, what we call episodic stress, which is episodes of stress, from acute stress to severe stress and general anxiety disorders, which is a consistent feeling of being stressed, unable to get away from that. And that's very, very bad for us. It's bad for our mental health because what we talked about before, about our cavemen going into stress mode, where we lose our libido, our immune system shuts down, our focus on personal things and things that need our attention go, our all those systems that close down, our digestive system closes down. When we've got our stress in this century, all of these things still do the same. They start to close down and they don't perform as well as they should because of the chemical reactions to stress and the nervous system responding to fight or flight. So that's why we have symptoms of stress, and we get those symptoms of stress because they're there to keep us safe and to prepare us for events that are scary that we need to fight or flight for. Now, they're very, very different these days, but we still prepare our body in the same way, and there's still the same consequences. You know that when you stress, you get short of breath and you breathe in, and your heart rate will raise and you'll flush, you'll get a temperature. All of these things are related to fight or flight, and we need to get away from these things because that is permanent stress all the time that, first of all, ages us. We're going to grow old a lot quicker. We all know that people that have stressful jobs, their hair goes grey and falls out quicker, and they're going to get more likely to become ill much quicker and suffer a whole load of physiological issues because of stress. So stress is necessary. We need it to look after us, but it should only be used in our bodies when we actually really need it, and not all the time when we are going through day-to-day life. And we should be able to manage that and contain it and recognize that the things that we are stressed about aren't that important. But that's the problem. So what could we then do to start thinking about managing our stress? Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few pointers here that really, really help with stress and will reduce your stress and help you manage it. And there's lots of things that you can add to this, but I'm just going to give you a few things. So one of them is not to put lots of positive posts on Facebook. I can't believe I'm still stressed. I've posted 15 positive quotes on Facebook about being positive and I'm still stressed. Doesn't achieve anything. Absolutely zero. You need to be real about what your stress is. You need to be real that it's a very physiological and important part of your life that's causing you to feel ill, that posting on Facebook isn't going to have any effect on whatsoever. You need to address it in a way that you take seriously, in a way that you need to make changes in your life to prevent yourself from being stressed all the time. So the first thing that I would say to you, and I'm emphasizing taking the seriousness of stress, is what a lot of people will do, they'll focus on material objects, for example, buying clothes, new things, nice houses, uh, things that are lovely to have, and there's a lot of emphasis on that, and we can spend a lot of money on that, and we'll put a lot of value into that. But ironically, we don't put that same value on our life. We go through our life socially anxious, stressed, depressed, not functioning well, and we don't make that a priority in our life. Now, people will put lots of other things or get lots of other things in the life before they prioritize their own health, their own mental health that affects every part of the body. Now, it could be that you're trying to substitute happiness that you don't feel with material gain or having nice things. But those nice things will fall apart or need renewing or sooner or later have to be replaced. Your mental health is you've got that for the rest of your life. You don't start taking it seriously and you don't start looking after yourself, then all of those material objects and all of that, the things that you're doing to put into place to make your life nice, is going to be meaningless eventually. And you'll constantly be striving to find things to fill that gap to make you feel good about your life. But you'll never get there because that's not the problem. The problem is the way that you feel about yourself and the stress that you're feeling. That's the problem. So first thing that is first is pretend you're valuable. Tell yourself that your life is important. Ultimately, we're all going to pass away. We're not going to be here. What are we going to do with that time to make sure that our life is as valuable and as precious as it can be before it's too late? What about our friends? What about our children? What about our family? What about our relations? Why aren't we putting the priority on ourselves to feel good so that everything else around us can feel good as well? That's a question I ask a lot of the time because I see all the time that people don't prioritize themselves and their own well-being and managing the stress and anxiety over other things. I don't get it, but I understand what goes on. I'm putting that to you. That's your first key. Start to value yourself and start to put some effort into making your life right. Okay, so a few other things. Let's think about breathing techniques. Now, taking time out to find a quiet place by yourself, away from work, away from the kids, away from everything that distracts you, and learning to breathe and to use mindfulness. And there's loads of great videos on YouTube. There's loads of stuff out there on mindfulness. Is something that you should do at least every evening and every morning, and possibly during the day if you can, to take yourself away from the busy environment and all the stresses that are in your life and spend some time thinking about nothing, just focusing on your breathing, thinking about that and clearing your mind. And what that does from a neurological point of view is it shuts down all of those systems that are causing you to be stressed because you ain't thinking about them. You're not generating all those stress hormones and stress chemicals, and you're taking time to allow your brain to have a break. You don't have to do that for long. It's that break in continuity that helps you feel better and more relaxed. You can learn to do that 3 or 4 times a day, taking time out to be mindful, to focus on you, to focus on your breathing, and to forget about everything else. You're going to really help to reduce the levels of stress and anxiety by taking that break from them. The other thing that's really important, and probably second to valuing yourself, is sleep. And I bash on about sleep, about how important it is, because we sleep for a third of our lives, and if our body needs to do something for a third of our lives, it kind of says, well, it's pretty important, really. There's something about sleep that we do for 30 years or more that's necessary, so we need to do it well. And most people don't sleep well. A lot of the reason most people don't sleep well is because they are stressed and because they're anxious. However, even if you've a reasonably stressful and anxious life, there's lots of evidence to say that you can still learn to sleep well if you're coping with how you manage that stress and anxiety. There's loads of great stuff on how to sleep well. I think I've got a post somewhere down my feed on my page with tips about sleep, avoiding caffeine, alcohol, sleeping pills. Don't do sleeping pills. Learn what to do before you go to sleep. There's great techniques and meditation apps, again, all to do with taking all the attention off the stress. You fall asleep, okay, you're worried about your day, you've had a bad day, you're worried about how that day is going to roll into tomorrow, and you get laid in bed thinking about it before you go to sleep. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to bed and you're going to wake up with the same thoughts. So you've gone to bed stressed and anxious, worried about work, worried about this, worried about the other. You wake up, worried about this, worried about, and then you go through a whole cycle through the day of doing the same things, having the same stresses, same worries, and going to bed and doing the same thing. You're not getting a break from it. Trust me, it is killing you early to do that, because you're not going to get good quality sleep and you are going to feel rough the next day. Sleep will help you cope better managing stress. Make stress a bigger priority than stressing, and learn to fall asleep with some meditation or some positive thinking or something that's going to feed your mind through the night as you sleep, because that's what happens when you fall asleep, that feeds your mind, that is away from the stresses of the day. And then when you wake up in the morning, don't get out of bed thinking about the stresses of the day or what you've got to do and that anxiety. Put yourself in a frame of mind of gratitude or thankfulness or positivity. Think about how grateful you are to have a life, have a roof over your head, have your dogs, have your relationships. Think about all the things you can be grateful for. Don't get out of bed. Don't put your feet on the floor until you feel good about yourself, because you're setting yourself up for the day to have more positive emotions. That's what you're triggering in your brain. And then go through your day with your mindfulness and think positive things. And you're starting to break up the episodes of stress and anxiety so they're not running permanently in your mind. So sleep is second to valuing yourself. Mindfulness is in there as well. And the last thing that's so important, which is what we just don't do enough of, we don't do enough thinking about thinking. So what does that mean? We're thinking all the time. Our minds are thinking all our conscious waking moments. But 95% of what we're thinking is automatic thinking. It's thinking about stuff that just, which is habits and behaviors and presuppositions and all of the things we've conditioned to do. So we go through the day like driving a car. We don't drive our car having to think about changing gears unless we're learning. And when we look in the mirror, when we put our indicators on, we do a journey, we don't reflect on that. We do it automatically because we've learned to do it. Well, that's the same with our thinking. We think because we've learned to do it and it's a behavior. So we no longer have to focus on it and think about that because that's what's driving our body. But when we start to think and slow down about what we're thinking and why, then we can start to question ourselves. Why are we thinking that? Why are we getting stressed about that meeting or seeing that person or an event in the future? When we start to slow down and reason with our thoughts and use some cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to address the issues that we're worried about, in that they are unnecessary to worry about, that often we label ourselves as being useless. Well, challenge that. What do you mean useless? Challenge the way that you think and stop these drives to constantly wear yourself down and get stressed and be anxious, because those are habits that you've created that need to be broken. And you can break those habits. You can move forward in a positive way by starting to value your life and thinking about what you're doing and changing all those habits so that you don't have the habits of stress and anxiety and negative thinking, but you create habits of positivity and coping and managing with stress, because you're challenging those stresses and you're not letting them overwhelm you without you even thinking about it. So remember, the way that you think and the way that you perceive yourself will absolutely shape the way that you think, feel, and behave. And if you think that a situation is going to be stressful and you're anxious about it in the future, that's exactly what it's going to be for you. You make that for yourself. So start to think about what you're thinking about. And those things will really help you. So I've just touched on a few things there, really, that hopefully will make, if you think about these things and learn about these things and find out about them, will make a difference in your life. So that's value yourself. Priority is to prioritize yourself above everything else, first of all. Then the rest can follow. Think about mindfulness. Learn to sleep properly, regardless of your anxiety. You can do that. And start to think about your life and think about what you're thinking and challenging what's going on in your life. Stop being driven by those automatic behaviors and automatic thoughts. Start to break those up and start to create new habits for yourself. Now, a lot of those things might be difficult, and a lot of those things you might need help with. That's what I do. That's why I'm a therapist. Those are the things I'll help you do for that. You can contact me through Facebook. You can click on my banner, book an appointment. I'll have a free chat with you and give you some advice and guidance. And if you want to take that further, absolutely, of course I will. But take your life seriously. Man, you can have a dozen expensive cars and great house and all of those things. They're valueless if you don't feel good about yourself and you're living in stress and anxiety all the time. And when you get older and you look back, the last thing you want to say is that, well, I've had a really stressful life. You want to say, I've had a good life that's been meaningful and positive. And you're able to do that yourself. You create that. You create that by the way that you think and the way that you feel about yourself. So thank you for watching. Again, so it's a little bit doom and gloomy, but it's important that you understand doom and gloom to get to grips with it so that you know what you've got to deal with, that you don't have to accept it. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you get something from it. Give me some comments and give me some thumbs up or some downs, and carry on with the direct messaging for me with the questions. That's really, really helpful for me. I love your thoughts and I love your opinions. I value them all. So take this away, have a think about it, and just think about where you want to be in life for the future. And I hope that helps you. So keep smiling. Speak to you soon.